Hi, my name is MC Basil. I'm a sci-fi fantasy author and host of the Golden Quills podcast, where we discuss all things writing business. I speak to authors who've been there and done that, and hopefully to give you some information and inspiration to help you the business of writing. So if that's something that interests you, please do like, subscribe, share, comment, and let me know what sort of topics you'd like me to cover. So without any further ado, let's speak about target audience.
Sure.
Please.
My name is Lane Northcutt. I am the author of The Delivery Company and Rejected, which is book 2 in the Delivery Company series. It's young adult dystopian, and I am currently working on the third of the trilogy, still living in New York City.
Awesome. Elle?
Hi, I'm Elle. I'm a steamy contemporary romance author, but up in Canada. And I have my debut novel, Calorglin, out right now. And on November 15th, the follow-up novella to that is coming. They're both on Amazon. So that's me.
Awesome. And Megan?
Yeah, the best for last, right? I'm Meg Alexandria. I am a romance writer, but specifically I cater towards fantasy and rom-com lovers. I have a sort of mystery fantasy werewolf romance available on Amazon. It's called The Miranda Writes Night Shift. That is a trilogy, so there'll be more than just that. And then also a contemporary romance called The Holiday Affair that you can own. And then I also write on Wattpad, and I have a lot of books on there. So
Awesome. Great. So this episode is focused on target audiences. So we just like to sort of speak about that, especially our experience as indie authors. So without further ado, question 1. Who do you write for, Lane?
Firstly, I would say that I write for myself. Like that would be the primary reason that I started writing. I started writing at a very young age just for fun, and then it became public. Things became published way later, because I am definitely not in elementary school anymore. But I write primarily for people who are living with or dealing with like chronic illness and disability, and then also just found family, alternative family, that sort of situation. People who kind of feel a little unseen and unsupported, but except by those who are kind of a part of the same group.
Good. Okay. And Elle?
So I feel kind of like Lane in the sense that I probably write primarily for myself. All my ideas are books that I would love to read, which is good because I read them a lot. And but I would say like my target audience would be women, probably 25 plus, really from anywhere.
Okay. So when you're writing for those sort of women in that sort of age group.
Yeah, specifically probably that age group.
Okay. And Megan?
well, I'm a romance writer too. So primarily my demographic, I guess my age group is also in the 25 to 45 age range, but I would put mine closer to like 18 to 45. But I write for both men and women. I like to write from both point of views. So really I feel like I just write for the average person that enjoys romance, but specifically a Megan Alexandria book will make you work for the happily ever after. So if you like hurting and, sort of trauma bonding with your main character, then my work is for you. But, I like to write sort of like interlinking character arcs and mysteries and whatever. But if you like world building and lore and, again, hurting for your happily ever after, that's who I write for.
And is that who you have in mind as you're writing?
Yeah, that's definitely who I have in mind when I'm writing. But like Lane said, I write for myself, so everything that I put out there, I write because I want to write it, and then afterwards I kind of figure out where it fits. And I've been surprised by the people who like DM me about my work, where I wouldn't have originally been like, oh yeah, I'm targeting this individual, but then like here they are messaging me, and I don't know. So I write for the average person who likes romance, I guess.
And here's a question. I mean, I've not written it down, but please feel free, anybody, to answer. As I'm writing, at first I certainly was writing for myself, but like a little voice sort of creeps into my head, thinking about my beta readers. Would they like it? Would they approve? Has anyone found that at all? Or is that just me?
Oh no, I mean 100%. You're right. Especially when you're, and sorry for being an American on here, but the beta readers, because I say it that way weirdly.
Yeah, me too.
I say it too.
Yeah. But yeah, my beta readers are also sometimes really close friends, depending on who it is that is going to be reading it, because I have a couple friends who read very heavily in the genre of young adult, specifically dystopian. And so I sometimes I'll have their voice, which I know very well in my head, and I'll like see flashes of their notes that came from previous chapters or a book, and
I
I'll be
like that you
oh
said
no,
flashes, like it's like a
it's like
traumatic experience.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, there's that all caps word or character name that is maybe or maybe not gonna repeat itself in their notes again. How do I feel about that?
Yeah.
I don't really usually though. It's I like to keep in mind what they think, but I also keep in mind what I ultimately want to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, my beta reader is Meg quite often.
Hey,
So so yeah, I often she's definitely like whenever I'm writing, sometimes I'm like, oh well, Meg like that. But also I really like having her because we approach romance very differently. I approach it from this like, you kind of wake up next to your person and you choose them every single day. Like, you have to work for it. It's not just gonna be running off into the sunset and everything's easy and perfect. Whereas she has a much more romanticized idea about romance novels, and so it's very helpful to keep me from getting too like
cynical.
psychology like a little bit too like I don't know how to put it, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Rigid.
medical about
No,
it
I'm
all.
just kidding. No.
So it's really helpful having that side of it so I can play both sides, my like kind of realistic, like, hey, love doesn't come super easy every single day all the time. There's life after the happily ever after and all that stuff. So I can balance it out nicely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
For me, I just tell the betas they're wrong. I'm kidding. No. No, I like beta reader notes and thinking about like what they'll expect and what they'll comment and stuff, and to see if I can challenge that or surprise them or whatever. So that's really the only time that I think about my beta readers, like, oh, are they gonna like this? It's really more of a, oh, are they gonna hate me for this, because this is kind of funny to think about it that way. But again, I'm a fantasy writer and all my work is sad, so it's it's a fun time over here. But like Elle said, she's one of my beta readers, and I like her because she is so analytical. Sometimes I think about her while I'm writing, and I'll put a note in for her to be like, hey, continuity check here, pay attention to this. So like when it comes up later, like I don't ruin this. So that's like the extent of will my beta readers read this? My thought is, will they think I'm an idiot if I mess up this? So,
Okay. Listen. Okay. So, question 2. Who is your ideal reader? Lane?
Ooh, what's so funny about this is I literally write this in my book, in the acknowledgments, or actually the very first thing in the very first page you'll see when you open the title cover, is for my ideal reader, my wife, Shannon. So yes, I know. Hello, romance writers. Welcome to the chat. It's funny because I don't even write romance. I say that, but like I have projects that probably could be considered that, but they're not published. But yeah, no, my wife is my ideal reader. I say that because she's kind of my ideal everything, but she reads a lot of I know, sorry. It's yeah. She also read pretty much everything that I had written in for the first book. I will say, like, she's not my beta reader anymore. Quite frankly, just because it can be, as you know, a lot to like dump onto somebody, a lot of like task and a lot of mental load of like questions, and also just like telling them that you don't like their suggestions. So I don't want that to be at home and, you know, over emails and other things. So no, but she's still my ideal reader because ultimately, like, if she likes it, as somebody who is a voracious reader, she reads a lot of like romance stuff too, but and young adult, a lot of young adult. And yes, I will be suggesting. But yeah, if she likes it, then I know that I've done a good job, because it's not typically her go-to book that I think she would pick up. But if she likes it, then that means most everybody who would typically pick that kind of book up would absolutely like it. And so it's kind of almost she's almost the ideal reader in the sense of like, she's my ideal reader for being so supportive, but she's also the ideal reader in the sense of she's almost like the anti ideal reader in a way of, yeah, you know what I mean? So she balances the scale.
Yeah. But I mean, what is it about her? I mean, and I think you did actually answer this, but what is it about her that when she reads it, she'll get it? You know what I mean? Because I suppose that's the target, the target reader. They read it, they get it. You know?
Yeah, and I guess to be fair, ideal in the sense of like business and in the sense of like a writer sort of vision is not necessarily her, for my reader, right? Ideal in the sense of like, personally, that would be her just because of that thing that I'd mentioned, right? For her to like it means that everybody who would be my demographic would like it. I would say my ideal reader, if I had to answer it separately from her though, would be, I had somebody who was just a casual reader message me a very lengthy message after they read my first book and had reviewed it, and had told me that it become one of their favorite books because they could see themselves in one of the characters in there that is not a main character, but it would they are that character is in a wheelchair, and it really meant something to me because my ideal reader it's strange because it's a group, it's not a specific person, and so it's a little bit difficult in that sense, but I do pride myself in research and ensuring that I'm representing well, and so they and one other I think would represent my ideal reader in that they see themselves in the characters, they feel represented, and they but they also are honest with how they feel about what I've written, and they help me grow from it, right? Their reviews, 3, 4, or 5, even 1 star, I learn from every review, and I think that yeah, I would consider those couple people that messaged me specifically, I would think that they would represent my ideal reader fairly well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. Elle?
Yeah, I think that's so sweet that your wife is your ideal reader. I have to say, and that you dedicated your book to her. I dedicated my first book to Meg. My poor husband.
We have a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, my ideal reader is going to be a romance reader. And I always say, you know, romance readers are a very specific sort. We're all kind of looking for the same thing. We want the happily ever after. We're looking for our tropes. We all kind of have different tropes that are just automatically, I'm going to buy that and put it in my cart. So a lot of the time, my ideal reader is honestly just based on the tropes that I choose to write. So if I know that you're a small town lover, then yeah, you know, Calorglin's going to be for you. If you like strangers to lovers, that's going to, you know, you're my ideal reader. So it's kind of like taking the romance reader market and then kind of having to like, you know, whittle that down to these are the tropes. So I know that that's going to be your, this is going to be your auto buy book sort of thing.
Now, I will say though, like real fast before I answer this, Elle, you have a book called For the Love of Art that is a billionaire romance, and I do not like billionaire romances, but I
it's a Playboy
book. Yes, that's the other thing. I do like the players, but you know, like it's not always the tropes, you know. We're here for other reasons.
You're here for the Playboy. Playboy is a trope, though.
I feel like your ideal reader, though, is the person reading romance who likes it when the characters are really more logic driven than, say, fate or soulmate driven, you know. Like your characters are always choosing each other and they can be fine without the other ones, whereas, you know, you read my books and they're like, no, these two were literally made for each other, there is no other option, you know. And those are two different types of, you know, romance readers. So my answer, I kind of already touched on that, but for me, my ideal reader is somebody who connects with my hero, or, you know, and depending on the book, my anti-hero, you know, but ideally they are romantic, but probably in like a reluctant sort of way, you know, and they like the complicated sort of character arcs that intersect with each other, and they like fantasy, especially when already set like lore is kind of changed a little bit, and very importantly dark humor, because I have a dark sense of humor and sometimes we're laughing when we probably shouldn't be, so but that's the healthy thing to do, right? But that's my ideal reader, somebody who's probably a little jaded but still very romantic, and yeah.
Okay. And here's a big question. How do you find your ideal reader?
I look in the mirror. I don't know if you guys, you know, that's no, I mean, but like realistically, right? Like realistically though, no, I mean, I think like I think back to why did I write this, right? Like, why did I write this? Who did I write this for? I wrote it for myself, yes, but I ultimately wrote it like once it was by the time I finally went through the edits and I published it, I was truly also writing for a group of people, right? Like it wasn't just for me by that point. It never is. I don't think it can ever be just for us anymore once it's at that point. Because literally you're hoping that it's for more than one you know, at that
belongs
point.
To the world, you know.
Yeah. And also, yes, exactly. Once it's out, it's no longer yours.
Yeah.
Although you'd like to take the credit for everything that's good, but you also, you know, you have to take the credit for everything that's not. But you know, I think that one way to find the ideal reader that I think I've used outside of like straight word of mouth sort of spreading, obviously is always good, is, believe it or not, good old Facebook. I don't, to be honest with you, I'm not on there a whole lot as much as I used to be. And I, as much as I would love to be one of those authors that has a very solid newsletter, I don't yet. And I know those do really, really well. But for me, well, I would say Facebook. It's Meta, Meta ads, right? So meaning like both Facebook and Instagram, I'm using target audience. I'm using the targeting within the ads themselves on there, and I'm seeing what works. And I just happen to look at kind of some of the analytics on the back end as well of the sales that I have, and see where is this being bought. Also, where is Kindle Unlimited being read, and by who, right? And so if it's primarily women from the age of 14 to 45, and it's primarily in the United States and the UK, I'm probably going to target, which is a lot of what I see, I'm probably going to target that age group with my ads, right? Now, not to say I'm not going to, run the same ads for men as well, because I try not to like only target who is already buying, because like, so why only do that? Because they're already buying, right? I want everybody who's in that sort of age group, but I try to look at who's buying already, and but then also see who's potentially not buying yet, but is like an adjacent group, right? That I can maybe convert via ad that way.
Okay.
Yeah, I will add to that. So I will say that Meta Facebook is a great tool to find your target audience. I'll kind of add about, like, I guess from a business perspective, how you can use it to your benefit, to your advantage, I guess. A lot of it really is trial and error. So you got to try something like an ad that you're going to put out, whether it be, a line of review that someone gave you, or maybe it's just something that encompasses your book. Like quite often for Colorglin, I use, travel to Ireland, as that's kind of like my catchphrase for the novel, that you get transported to this other country. And then you kind of got to play with it a little bit, and you target a specific country, you target a specific group, but you want to leave kind of stuff a little general. Like you don't want to niche down so much that you're not opening it up to a bunch of people. You just kind of want like very simple things. So like I always say, pick the country that you're targeting, pick the age group that you're targeting, and then the money amount is, you don't have to sit here and be like, I gotta spend $100 a month. Like it's not like that at all.
Well, and also Facebook has like different scales where you can do like an intuitive thing where the AI will decide how much you spend a day and who it should be directed to.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really great things, but I would say, like, just from a business perspective, I always tell people this: if you want to make money, you got to spend money. It's true of every business. It's going to be true of your writing. So that is what I have to add to that.
So I'm going last here. What was the exact question though? Was it like, how do you find your ideal reader? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I don't like jump the shark here, because I get really into just adding to the dialogue here with Elle. So like, I guess, like I said at the beginning, I write the book and then I worry about where it fits later. For me, finding my ideal reader comes like in the beta, in the editing and the marketing that's leading up to release. Because like you do things like on Meta, you do reels and you follow Bookstagram and you connect genuinely with other readers and writers and the community. And, when you have a chance to actually talk to a person and I guess see what they like, and you follow their content, you see the type of books that they're consuming, and maybe you fit in there. It's really more like a long game where you're like, I guess, building this sort of relationship with that. Like for me, my readers aren't really a statistic or a demographic, they're connections. So like that's what I'm doing. My end game here is to, I don't know, I like it when people slide in my DMs and they say, oh my gosh, chapter blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh yeah, what do you think's gonna happen? And yeah, like that sort of thing. So then I just glom onto them after that and become their friend. I'm kidding, but it's like a long game for me.
I feel like I just want to add to something you said there, which was Bookstagram. This is probably the most underutilized way to find your target audience, because Bookstagrammers are out there and they are accepting indie books. They are marketing those books. And let me tell you, Bookstagrammers are selling books without even trying to sell books. Like Absolutely. They are just able to. So your target audience is already around you. It's just about finding the avenues to get to them, and
Mhm.
Bookstagram is just something that is completely underutilized by indie authors. So don't be
Well-
afraid to approach Bookstagrammers.
Well, not only that, but like we've had a couple, or I've talked to a couple Bookstagrammers that promoted my book, and then I had readers come from that because they
Yeah.
were already like reading similar things, and then they like
Yes.
were like, oh hey, you know.
Well, when you're
yeah.
on books, because when you're on Bookstagram, you want to make sure you're on the right Bookstagram. So
Yeah,
if you
not
are
just anyone, just
Yeah.
specific. Yeah.
yeah, like if you're
Yeah.
a fantasy writer, get on fantasy Bookstagram.
Fantasy,
If you're general fiction, like you want to be following those people, because once you do, they already have that target audience. They're already catering to these people. They're
Mhm.
already recommending books to these people. So now your book has now slid in there to your target audience. So it's a really great tool.
Yeah, and hashtags on that too.
Yeah.
What's Bookstagram for those who don't know?
It's on Instagram. It's just basically people who their whole Instagram is about books. So book reviews, flat lays, messy lays, like just basically everything you see is about books, and your book could be one of them.
Yeah, anything and
So they're
everything
like,
book related.
Yeah, they're
Exactly.
book influencers. That's
Yeah, they're basically book influencers. Yeah.
Okay. Also, something I wanted to ask is: has anybody actually had any success with Bookstagram?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tool that Elle and I use a lot.
Yeah.
And we encourage every indie writer to connect with other
We even send Bookstagram pages to people who we know are like into their genre of book as well. The other thing I'll say about Bookstagram that is so great is that if you approach somebody and your book maybe isn't their genre, isn't their interest, for whatever reason, they often know someone who likely will take your book. So it's like, so don't ever feel like a no is a no. It's just probably this is not your person. And honestly, you want someone who's interested in your book, marketing your book.
Well, not only that, but I can't harp this enough. It has to be like a genuine connection. You can't just shotgun every Bookstagrammer in your, reach and hope that they take it. Like, follow the person, like their content, actually engage, learn about them, take time to find out if they even like romantasy before you pitch them your 400-page werewolf book, like but yeah.
And also be a part of the community itself before you just start like doing anything. Like honestly, I would say that I don't have a ton of success with Bookstagram, not because I don't want to eventually be a much bigger part of it. It's just because I know that I haven't done a lot in that realm yet. And I don't want to, and I'm not going to just go like bothering a bunch of Bookstagrammers just because it's the thing to do. Right. Like, and same thing and I know we haven't mentioned it yet, but same for TikTok. Right. And that was something that I forgot to mention, but that was actually a bigger thing for me, than Instagram. And Facebook, to be quite honest, because my engagement usually is very like personable on video via that rather than Instagram with the photos. Weirdly,
well, reels are video content
and
now.
Reels, and now that they have reels on there, a lot of people also are like doubling up. The reels are coming from TikTok or vice versa, right? But yeah, I mean, I can't stress enough, like don't try to force yourself into a community that you're not already you got to work your way in. Don't just like dive into the deep end.
So that was part 1. I hope you enjoyed it. Before we go to part 2, please comment below. Let me know what you thought of part 1 and what you'd like me to cover next.